In this video, we will discuss friend functions in C++ object-oriented programming. A friend function in the concept of OOP is a function that is simply not a member of a class, but it was granted access to the private data members of the class. Let us see how. To explain the concept of friend functions, let's go ahead and create a class called rectangle like this. This class called rectangle will have private data members. The first data member, it will be the width of the rectangle. The second one will be the height of the rectangle, okay? Now in the public section, what I will do is I'll create a rectangle constructor, a constructor that will simply initialize the data members. I'll receive from the constructor a width and a height like this. So height like this. Now what I'll do is I'll simply assign the parameters given by the constructor to the data members of the object. So I'll say this height like this equal to the height given by the constructor. Now let's go ahead and discover how to create friend functions. Now I want to create three friend functions for this class rectangle. The first one will be called perimeter. It is a function that will find the perimeter of the rectangle object. The second one will be area. It will find the area. And the last friend function will be display data members. It will simply just see out the data members. Let us start now by defining or creating the perimeter function. The perimeter function will simply return an integer, which will be the perimeter. I will call the function perimeter like this, and I will receive a rectangle object by reference, and I'll call it object. Now this is right here the reference operator, this one. It is used to pass a object by reference to a function, meaning the function will work directly with the original object or the original value inside memory. Because if you don't use it, what this will do is that the function will create a copy of the past value and it will work with the copy of the past value. So that's why I am using the reference operator to be able to work with the original object in memory. Okay? Now this function right here is still not a friend function. In order to make it a friend function, I will mention at the beginning the keyword friend. Now this function right here is in fact a friend function. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for the area. So I'll say friend int area like this, and the area function will also receive a rectangle object by reference like this. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the display data members. So again, friend, and I will say void this time, display data members like this, and of course it will receive a rectangle object by reference like this. These are three functions that are friend with this rectangle class. So basically right here you can see that there is no implementation for these functions. Basically what we're doing right now is we are telling this class that hey, you have three friend functions. These three friend functions have access right now to your private data members. So these friend functions can access your private data members. Now how do you give them implementation? Well, directly outside the class you can give them implementation. Let's start with the perimeter function. I will say int perimeter, and there is no need to, and of course you should not mention friend like this. There is no need to, okay? Now, let's go ahead and give it the implementation. So I'll say rectangle. I will pass it the object rectangle by reference. I'll call it object. Now, how to find the perimeter of a rectangle? I will simply return 2 multiplied by object. And look what I'm going to do. I'm going to use dot notation, and as you can see, I was able to access the private data members of the rectangle class. Why was I able to access them? Well, because the perimeter function is in fact a friend function with the rectangle class, and a friend function has the access to the private data members of the class. So that is why when I use dot notation with this object right here, which is a rectangle object, I am able to access the data members that are private, because perimeter right here is a friend function. So I'll say object.width plus object.height like this. Now let's do the same thing for the area. I'll say int area like this, rectangle like this, and it will be passed by reference. And to find the area of a rectangle, I'll simply say return object.width multiplied by object.height like this. Okay, now let's do the display data members. So display data members like this, it will get a rectangle object by reference again, and so what we'll do is we'll simply see out width like this, and the width will be let's say like this, and I'll say object.width like this, and L. And now for the height, it will be the height object.height like this. Okay, so these are the three friend functions. Now inside the main, what I will do is I will create a rectangle object. I will call it rectangle1 like this, and now I will pass it, for example, 4 as the width, and the height will be 2, for example. Now, how do we actually call friend functions? Well, if you thought about calling, first of all, using the object and saying dot notation and typing the name of the function, well, this doesn't work because, again, friend functions are not members of the class. They are simply friends with the class, so they don't belong to the class. So if you had, for example, a void function like this, well, this right here is a data member, or excuse me, a function member. This belongs to the class rectangle. So right here, when you use dot notation, you can access this function because it is a function member of the class called rectangle. But those functions right here are simply friend functions. They don't belong to the class called rectangle. Okay, so how do we call them? Well, simply, how do you call a normal function? Well, you simply call it by typing its name. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll say display data members and pass it the rectangle object. So rectangle1 like this. Then after this, I'll say cout perimeter like this. And after this, I'll call the perimeter function, and I will say rectangle1 like this. Okay, and let me do the same thing for the area. I will copy this, paste it right here. Let me fix the area right here. So instead of perimeter, I will say area and call the area function, friend function. And right here, let me fix this, and there you have it. Let's go ahead and run our code. As you can see, the width is 4, height is 2, perimeter is 12, and area is 8. So our code works properly. And this is it about friend functions. And just a side note, always pass the object by reference to a friend function in order to affect the original object in memory. Alright, thank you for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date for the next C++ tutorial video. And I hope to see you in the next video.